Let's get salty!
Everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video. In our last review series, we took a look at all the rogue cards for Forged in the Barrens, and today we are going to be looking at all the Shaman cards, rating them on a 5-star basis, 5-star being God tier auto-include card, and 1-star being unplayable trash you would hate to put in your deck. And again, we were reviewing in both standard and wild, so let's hop right in and take a look at the Shaman cards. So first we have Spawn Pool Forger, 1 mana 1/2 Murloc, Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 Tiny Fin. This is like Murmy, but slightly better, and Murmy wasn't particularly bad. Shaman is getting a lot of incredible Murloc support, and basically this card will ensure if you play it on 1, you're basically always going to have an active Murloc on 2, which is incredibly important when we take a look at some of the other cards, or even some of the neutral cards. This is a 5-star 1-drop for Shaman. It's going to be auto-include in all the Murloc decks, plus you might just run it in any Shaman deck just to get early board, because it's that good. And in Wild, where Murloc Shaman is a prevalent deck, there is so much support going to Murloc Shaman that there's a good chance it's going to be coming back, and you're going to be putting that card in this deck. So in Wild, I'll give it a 4. It's just one of the most sticky 1-drops ever made in Hearthstone history. It's just insane. Next, we have Chain Lightning, the rank spell. It does 2 damage for 2 mana to a minion and a random adjacent one. So if it's in the middle, it'll go right or left. It's completely random, but if you get like the leftmost minions, it's always going to hit the right because it can't hit a non-existent minion. And when it upgrades at 5, it does 3, and when it upgrades at 10 mana, it does 4. So this is actually pretty sweet, good early removal. It's 2 mana, deal 4 at the very worst, and that's just solid. Shaman doesn't have the best early game removal. They do have like Landslide, but you want to be overloaded to get value out of that. And you have the new like an improved Lightning Storm, but still it's 3 mana, it overloads you. This does none of that. This is an incredibly powerful card. You can play this in a control deck, you can play it in more like a mid-range deck to help fight for board. It's just really solid. Spell damage totem is leading, so it's harder to, you know, get that deal 3 and 3, because that would be 2 mana deal 6 with a spell damage totem. But with the new 1-drop from the core set coming in, and you have Primordial Studies, this card's just really sweet. I'm gonna give it a 4 in standard. I think it sees a lot of play in wild. It just doesn't really fit into any archetype except of maybe Big Shaman might be able to run this in there, and it's just so solid that I will give it a 3 there, but probably won't pop up as much as I would hope. We have Firemancer Flurgle, the 2 mana 2/3 Murloc, legendary Murloc. After you play a Murloc, deal 1 damage to all enemies. So yeah, it's altruist in the Murloc form. You're only limited by your mana count and your board size, and when you have cards that, you know, all these cheap new Murlocs we're getting in there, it's just really solid. And in standard, it'll be a centerpiece in that Murloc Shaman deck that I think will beat meta. I don't think it'll be overpowered, I don't think it'll be amazingly good, but I think it'll be somewhat competitive, and this card's a big part of that. I don't think it's as insane as the 1-drop, because that 1-drop is just, you can put it in so many different decks. This requires Murlocs, and it requires Murlocs to be good, but I do think they'll be good enough, so I'll give it a 4 in standard. And in wild, where you have cards like Toxfin, you can combo with like Scargill. There's just a lot of implications there. I'm gonna give it a 4 in wild. The card will be really good at Murloc Shaman there. It's basically a board wipe with Toxfin. Like maybe you just do Ice Fishing with Toxfin and Firemancer Flurgle and like a control deck, and just give yourself a guaranteed AoE for 3 mana. It's pretty ridiculous. So we have another Murloc, 2 mana 3/2 South Coast Chieftain Battlecry. If you control another Murloc, deal 2 damage. So as you play that 1-drop on 1, you basically are always going to have a Murloc controlled. You have Tiny Fin, which you can combo this with in standard. That was added to the core set, and it's like Merc Spark Eel, which has been an incredibly powerful card. It was in standard and even Shaman, and it's still very good in even Shaman and wild. You're putting this in your Murloc Shaman deck, and it's very good. I'll give it a 4 as well. Just solid Murloc, and again in wild, I'll give it a 4 there too, because it just works really well with Tidecaller, Rockpool Hunter, all these other Murlocs. It's just super solid, premium stats, insane battle cry. Just have a Murloc on the board, and it's not that hard to do in those decks. We have Tiny Fin's Caravan, 2 mana 1/3 at the start of your turn, draw a Murloc. So this is like Shaman's way of drawing cards. God, these Caravan cards are just awful. Again, it's a 1/3, it's unlikely to live, it's auto kill. Your opponent needs to kill it because, well, Shaman doesn't have much card draw options in standard, so they're going to be even more inclined to kill it. Even if you have a Spawn Pool Forge or live on turn 1, they're not going to ignore it, you know, go to that and not kill your Caravan. It's rough, but I feel like Murloc Shaman kind of has to have a card like this, because how are they going to draw cards? It's going to be incredibly tough. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a very optimistic 3 that it'll see Fringe play because they're so aggressive with their early game that a Caravan might actually stick around. Maybe. This might be the only playable Caravan, maybe. And in Wild, absolutely not. It's a 1. You're never playing it. There's other options. Don't even think about it. We have Arid Stormer, 3 mana, 2/5 Elemental Battlecry. If you played an Elemental last turn, gave Rush and Wind Fury. There's a 1 mana neutral Elemental we'll review in our neutral set, but it makes the next Elemental you play cost 1 less, and this would activate Arid Stormer pretty well. Is that effect worth running Elementals for? I'm not entirely sure, but we have a couple cards here later that are kind of insane that might warrant it, like a mid-range Elemental Shaman package, but I'm not really seeing the Elemental stuff paying off. Like, are you putting it to like a Cthulhu or Yashiraj like Dunk Tank deck? I don't know. It's out there. It's potentially very powerful. The effect is really good. I'll give it a 2. I don't think this elemental package is going to make the cut in standard. Definitely not on Wild, where I'll give it a 2 as well. But yeah, I could very well be wrong on this. It's a very powerful effect. We have No Fin Can Stop Us Now, 3 mana spell. Give your minions +1/+1, so that's any minions. And then you give your Murlocs an extra +1/+1. So if you have a totem on the board, they will get buffed, but only by the 1. But it only hits Murlocs, unlike every Fin that would buff all Murlocs. But, you know, if you're playing Murloc Shaman, which I think you will be, you're putting this in there because it's just really good. 3 mana +2/+2 on Murlocs is very solid. Why would you not run that? So for that reason, I'll give it a 4 in standard and a 4 in Wild. More buffs in Wild are just really helpful because, again, that deck can utilize it, and then you have everything to go on top of it. Can be pretty ridiculous. Next we have Brucan, the Shaman Legendary, 4 mana 5/4 nature spell damage +3. So this only works with nature spells, but as you saw with like the rank spell, which I think is really good, that's a really solid effect. You can pair this up with like a Storm Strike, Dunk Tank, Serpent Shrine, Portal. There's a lot of potential with this card, and that's a lot of spell damage on a premium stated minion. I don't know what this really pops up in, more of that maybe that mid-range elemental build, but I do think it'll see play. That is just so much spell damage. There's so much implications for that that'll give it a 3. And plus, they made it diamond for a reason, right? It looks pretty sweet diamond. They have had to do it for a reason, right? So there in a Wild, you might want to just go crazy in some combo decks, but it's too slow in Wild. It's just the format is just so insane right now. I can't see even a 4 mana spell damage minion popping up to do some combo. I'll give it a 2 in Wild, but it's a pretty cool card. We have Earth Revenant, 4 mana 2/6 elemental taunt. Battlecry, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. So doesn't hit your own stuff. It's a elemental. It is taunt. It's got a whirlwind on top of it. That's pretty freaking sweet. And like we saw like Scorcher, this dragon, 5 mana 3/6 saw play back in the day, and that hit your own minions. This just seems like, why not? This is what might make that elemental package work out, with, especially with the next card. And again, I don't know if it works. It's just like we've seen Shaman with all these really good cards. Like there's that Rumbling Elemental or whatever, the 5 mana deal 2 to everything type of minion that seems insane on paper, but they just never work out. So I'm going to give it a 2 in standard. I just can't see it. I don't know. I'm just skeptical on it. And in Wild, I'll give it a 2 as well. I don't know what you're playing it. I guess it's a battle cry for Shudderwalk. You put it as like a Shudderwalk option, but probably not. And then lastly, we have Lily Pad Lurker. Probably the most insane of these elementals. 5 mana 4/5. If you played an elemental last turn, transform an enemy minion into a 0/1 frog with taunt. So it's Hex on a stick, and it's not random. You can target it. That's like ridiculous. This effect is absolutely insane on a 5-drop. The problem is you have to play elementals and win games based on that deck. This card, like, if you look at it standalone, is like 5 stars in terms of its ability, but in terms of like finding a deck that's going to utilize it, you have to play elementals, you have to have a reasonable win condition, and I don't know what does that, but this card is so powerful that I feel if anything's going to help make it put it over the top, it'll be it. So despite the fact I gave all the other cards too that I won't see play, I'll make absolutely no sense and give this a 3, that it's going to pop up somewhere somehow because its effect is so nuts. And in Wild, I don't know, maybe in Wild you can do it with like Zephrys and a couple of the other elementals and just throw it into Shudderwalk, like a Highlander Shudderwalk. Maybe I'll give it a fringe 3 there, but probably won't happen. But there you go. Shaman right now, not particularly amazing outside of like the unnerf phase of the standard meta. It had its time with Evolve, but I think Murloc Shaman will be a legitimate like meta deck. The only issue I see with that deck is it's going to have like a really good early game and then completely run out of steam as the card draw, the refill isn't really there. So it's got to win really early, really hard, and without Bloodlust to, you know, help carry it as well, it's going to be tough. But other than that, this elemental mid-range shaman deck, I hope it works. I hope like one of the old gods maybe help make it work or something along those lines, but I'm pretty skeptical. Don't know if it'll happen, but hopefully shaman can be playable because it's been pretty rough this past year. So if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day and stay salty, my friends.